Thanks for tuning into Electric Bike Journal. Today we're taking a look at the Momentum Cito E Plus. This definitely is a different take on the average cargo bike. It's got a lot of really cool integrations and features that we're excited to share with you. So stay tuned, we'll talk about the specs of the Cito E Plus, those integrations, discuss some of the accessories that they have available, and of course share our thoughts on how well it performs as an electric cargo bike. Well, before we dive into the Momentum Cito E Plus, keep in mind this is just one of a handful of long-tail electric cargo bikes that we have brought on test for our Cargo Roundup. Each one of those bikes has been a fantastic bike. They all have something to offer. So if you're interested in seeing those more head-to-head to find out which one's right for you, be sure to stay tuned for that video as it is released, or maybe at the time of this video, it's already out. So we'll go ahead and link that one down below so you can check that out. For now, let's talk about the Momentum Cito E Plus. Well, for those of you that have not heard of Momentum bikes, they are part of the Giant family of bikes. I don't mean the large family of bicycles overall, I mean Giant brand bicycles, who has been around a long time. Momentum focuses primarily on urban and cargo bikes, kind of the blend of urban cargo bikes, and the Cito E Plus is definitely a great representation of what they are trying to do. On the surface, 20-inch front wheel, 20-inch rear wheel, fat tires, suspension fork, and the looks of an average cargo bike. But it's the integration and features of this bike that really steps it up to have a lot more to offer for the user. Starting at $3,200, the Momentum Cito E Plus is a Class 3 rated electric cargo bike. It has a 408-ish pound load capacity and an expected range of about 75 miles. Now for us in our testing, we primarily focused on the mileage on the low end and how many miles you can get at full power. So we'll talk more about the range expectations later. If you don't want to hear anything about the specs or any other detail, it's all chaptered out below. You can go ahead and skip ahead, but I'm sure there's something in here you're gonna want to hear. Well, before we jump into the specs and components of the Cito E Plus, let's talk a little bit about the features and integrations of this bike. Moving from the front to the back, Momentum's done a good job at setting this bike up with a lot of the creature comforts of a vehicle. Up front here, we see a nice big, large headlight. I'm sure maybe even in this frame, you can see that beam hitting me in broad daylight. At night, this light goes far, it's nice and wide, and most importantly, it's super bright, and that just lets you stand out when you're riding along with cars. Additionally, up front, we see something that is not common on bikes, is an E-horn. This is a horn that's mounted up front, and I didn't think I would really use it a whole lot, as a lot of bikes come with bells, and I typically only use those on trails to let pedestrians, other people on those trails know that I'm behind them. But I found myself using that horn quite a bit around town to let drivers know, hey, I'm here. Before you get over in the bike lane to make that right, maybe check your mirror because I'm back here. Moving back past that horn is an accessory that we've added to this bike. It doesn't come with it, but we do think it's very nice for an urban bike to have mirrors. These mirrors are really adjustable, they're durable, and have a nice little bubble to them as well, so you have a nice visible line of sight behind you. I personally am not a big mirror fan on bikes, but as I ride more around town and have been testing all these cargo bikes and doing a lot of miles leaving that vehicle at home, I am understanding the value of mirrors and being able to see who's creeping up behind you when you're moving forward and you can't hear them. Now moving to the back of the bike to wrap up those vehicular style features of the Cito E Plus are turn signals. So if we go ahead and click over that switch there, I'm gonna take the mic off. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but that is the blinker relay. It's something you can hear audibly. I have used turn signals on electric bikes before. We have a helmet that we've reviewed that has turn signals integrated into the back of it. But with all of those, typically there's no relay, so you don't really hear that click while you're using it, and you forget that it's on, and all of a sudden you're 5 miles down the road and you're still turning left. Well, some really cool features that I think are worth talking about before we get into all the specs of the Cito E Plus. I think it's really cool that Momentum kind of went that extra mile to offer a lot of those creature comforts that we expect in our car onto a bike. It's just something that's going to add more safety to you as the rider, greater visibility in the back, greater visibility up front and, you know, indicators to the people around you that you're doing a left or a right turn, and being able to have that horn on there. All really cool things. So let's get into the specs of the Cito E Plus. Well, the Cito E Plus uses a 750 watt sync drive Move S rear drive unit, and that has 80 newton meters of torque. So a very powerful motor that we're seeing on this bike. It's one of the most powerful drive units that we've had on test specifically for this Roundup. When it comes to riding, it's very quiet and it gets up to speed very quickly. Additionally, it helps keep you at higher speeds much easier. A lot of torque getting pushed out. Bike as a whole is really efficient, and its roll-in resistance, I think posture, the length, a lot of details coming into play there, but being able to keep you at the higher speeds is very easy on this bike, and a lot of that goes to that drive unit. Integrated and removable from the frame is a energy pack 780 watt hour battery. Again, this does offer about 75 miles of maximum range output. In our testing, again, full power. We saw lower numbers, but that's to be expected, and we'll talk about what numbers we saw a little bit later on. There is a Microshift Acolyte 8-speed drivetrain on here. 8-speed, I feel like happens to be enough on this platform. Typically, I like to see a 9 or a 10 speed, but this drivetrain is working fantastic, and I wouldn't replace it for any reason unless something were to get damaged, you know, months or years down the road. Braking power is supplied by Tektro Dorado hydraulic disc brakes. These are 4-piston calipers, 203 millimeter rotors. I'll show a little clip here of how quickly you can come to a stop before this bike breaks up and starts skidding. As mentioned, this is a class 3 electric bike, but there is a twist throttle located up on the handlebars. That throttle, though, keep in mind, is not always active. You have to be moving and in motion for that throttle to work. So if you are at a stop and load it up and go to grab that throttle to help you get rolling, it won't be able to do anything for you until you put your feet on the pedals and start rolling. I'm not sure why they went that direction. It is one of our nitpicks, but that is something to keep in mind with that throttle. Once you are rolling, though, it has pedal assist or throttle assist up to 20 miles per hour, and that twist throttle is very comfortable, easy to grab. The Cito E Plus comes in at about 86 pounds, so it's definitely not the lightest cargo bike on test. Does not by any means feel like 86 pounds. Even moving it around in the garage, it feels lighter than that. 86 pounds is before all of the accessories on there and as a single battery setup. The accessories we've chosen are a front basket, because every cargo bike should have a front basket, or at least a place to put something up front, especially if you are going to be hauling kids or anything like that. If they're back there, where are you gonna put your stuff? So front basket, a rear rack there for the kids. It has pads on there, so even when it's hot and sunny like this, those pads won't get as hot and maybe burn a kid's arm. And that does come with that passenger pad in that whole passenger bundle. And there are floorboards back there as well. These are real short floorboards. As a cargo bike, this is more of a single child or a single passenger rear end. I'm sure it's long enough you could squeeze more on there, but you could tell with their decision on their passenger setup with the single foot floorboards, their intention and probably what they approve of is a single passenger back there. Overall load capacity is about 408 pounds on the Cito E Plus. For the rider alone, they have a limit of about 240-ish pounds. So that gives you a window of about 160 pounds in the rear rack that you could load up to. So it's not the highest of all the cargo bikes, but if you are looking at it with the view that that is a single passenger position back there, especially with their indicator of that single foot floorboard, 160 pounds is going to be real hard to beat unless you're talking about a full-size adult like myself. Up front, this front rack has a 33-pound weight capacity. Now, I have put 20 pounds up front on our test ride, and with the suspension fork, you can definitely feel the front end kind of sink in a little bit. So just keep in mind when you are putting extra weight up front that it will cause the front end to be a little bit slower in your steering. I hinted at it earlier and just now brought it back up, but the front suspension fork on the Cito E Plus is an RST front fork. It has 60 millimeters of travel and a lockout. I found myself riding with this locked out most of the time, and when roads were getting real rough and I wanted a little extra comfort, I'd flick that switch to unlock that fork to add that extra suspension up front. But it is not crucial to this bike riding smooth, I'll tell you that much. The 4-inch wide tires on here really do a lot in the overall design of this bike to make it roll and ride very smooth. Now you can see I have the seat post up quite a bit. At 6 feet tall, there is a little bit more room to extend that up. They do have it approved for riders up to 6'3", and with that fully pushed in all the way, riders of about 4'9" could be accommodated by the Cito E Plus. Our testers between 5'3", 6 foot. All of us felt very comfortable on this bike purely by changing the height of the seat post. And again, that 86 pounds didn't feel overwhelming for any of our testers as well. Talking about length and size, as well as that load capacity, overall length is relatively short in the grand scheme of things for long tail electric cargo bikes, but that 25.5-inch high deck height on the back does make it, you know, 1.5 to 2 inches taller than many other long tail cargo bikes. And I think that in combination with the tall tires definitely makes the rear end of this bike, although just 1 inch or 2 at most, feel much higher than some of the other bikes. And that is just something to keep in mind if you are on the shorter side of things and have kids that you want to load up in the back and have to lift them up over that rail. They might have to help you a little bit in crawling in there. But with the rail off and just maybe using a basket on the back or some other sort of accessory that you concoct to throw your gear, 25.5 inches isn't too bad, but it is interesting how 1 inch can feel so different when it comes to height and putting gear in the back. Where I personally felt that feel different was when it was loaded up. Now on the performance side of things, with it loaded up, it didn't make much of a difference, but in the riding characteristic and the maneuverability, having the weight up just a little bit higher and a little bit closer to you with that shorter wheelbase, the bike didn't feel as planted and stable as some of the other bikes with longer wheelbases. So if you are looking at this and considering using it for applications of having higher than 50+ pound weights on there consistently, there will be a learning curve to get familiar with how the bike reacts and responds. Once you're rolling and actually moving at speed, it is not as noticeable. It's more noticeable at those lower speeds. Wrapping up the sizing details, that short wheelbase though, that head tube angle, this bike turns very nicely, especially when you are going slow and you're on tight paths like this. It can maneuver through very, very tight, quick turns and not feel like it's throwing you over. Obviously with the weight back there, you're gonna wanna approach those turns a little bit more planted and stable, maybe not as sharp, but if it is just you riding it, it can really turn around very quickly. And I think that short wheelbase is a major benefit. Jumping into power and performance of the Cito E Plus, this is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful electric cargo bike that we've had on test. And that's not based off of the numbers. There are bikes with higher number watts and Newton meters. It's the overall efficiency and effectiveness of this drive platform that really helps that power come alive and be put to use. In application in our test loop and just keeping track of numbers across the board with all the bikes, the Cito E Plus had the highest average speed round trip of all the bikes, and it had the fastest time overall for the same test loop. Now, time is a number that I say loosely because of one random stoplight or a stop sign taking too long, being a little bit slower or more on the brakes here and there, definitely impacts your time and adds up at the end. But average speed is something that is a little bit easier for us to agree with in all of those numbers brought together. And what helps that do this is a very smooth rolling platform. These tires manage and have very minimal rolling resistance when it comes to riding around town. Now I did play with airing them up and airing them down. The lower PSI, the lower pressure ratings, if you're not watching them and letting your tires deflate, it'll definitely slow this bike down a lot, but that more so has a greater impact on how smooth and how comfortable it feels turning. There's a lot of roll in those tires when you let them deflate and need to turn. But as far as aired up at proper PSI and putting this thing in full power and just getting out there and pedaling as far as possible, it puts the power out and will hold you at those speeds well. But you do have to pedal in order to get that. You can't rely on that throttle for the higher speeds, but the throttle holding you at 20 is seemingly effortless, and it kind of seems like the bike's just sitting there like, I want to do more. Positive things to say about the power output of the Cito E Plus, and as far as range goes in that application, like I said, testing eco range and maximum power or maximum mileage, sorry, that a bike can get is really hard to narrow down, as well as in full power as well, because riders are different sizes, temperature outside, wind, the type of roads, your tire pressure. There's way too many details that affect that. But in our closed bubble of all of our bikes set up the same way and doing those laps back to back to back, this bike, again, was the fastest average speed across the board, but additionally it had a very high remaining amount of mileage left afterwards. So our test loop was 12 miles that we were keeping track of all the bikes on, and we did ride them to kill the batteries. But this one, after 12 miles getting back, still had 58% battery left and a range estimation of 31 miles. So on paper, they say that this bike gets closer to 20 to 30 miles for a full power output for maximum range. And in our testing, we had 43 miles left over on range. So we definitely surpassed the projected numbers. Again, over time, changing out weight, gear, weather, all those details, we saw different numbers, and you would see slightly different numbers here and there. But it is cool to know that it has the capacity to do over 35 miles comfortably in full power mode. Well, overall, the Cito E Plus has definitely changed our perspective on what an electric cargo bike could be and what they're capable of being. I think that with all of what they brought to the table here at a starting price point of $3,200, you're getting a lot of power and really great battery range. On top of that, you're getting super powerful brakes, front suspension fork, and really large fat tires on this bike. So you're getting a lot of comfort as well. We did go ahead and kind of push that $3,200 another $600–700 to add the additional accessories. Not every one of these accessories is for every person, but I think that a lot of what's on here will make sense. I didn't talk about it too much, but this top tube here, this doesn't come with the bike. That is a bolt-on accessory to give you another mounting point for bike locks, another mounting point for different accessories, and it has a little storage glove box in there as well. I think for $3,200, what they're offering here, it is a really hard deal to pass up. I think, you know, if you were to shave $1,000 off of that, you're looking at bikes that have noticeably less power, noticeably less range, and don't come with all the integrations of turn signals, horn, bright lights, you know, those little additional comforts for safety, as well as the fact that this is from Giant, you know, it's from Momentum, but a Giant brand, and there's a lot of additional engineering research that goes into the manufacturing of this bike for safety and certifications. You know, the battery is a collaboration with Panasonic, so it's very safe, UL certified battery on there, and the sync drive units are extremely safe as well. Well, that's enough on the Cito E Plus. I think that this is a fantastic cargo bike offering, especially if you're only looking to put max one kid in the back, or maybe you're just looking to leave that truck at home and make your commute more enjoyable and dodge all that traffic. I think for $3,200, it's hard to find a cargo bike with as much power and integrations as the Cito E Plus. So thanks again for watching. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below. And if you're not subscribed yet, be sure to click subscribe and turn notifications on. We have one more bike left in our cargo lineup before we get to our big roundtable talk and discuss all of the bikes head to head to find out which one's for the right rider. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next one.